Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopala Jaya Jaya Govinda Jaya Jaya Govinda Jaya Jaya Gopala Jaya Jaya Govinda Jaya Jaya Radha Ramana Hari Govinda Jaya Jaya Radha Ramana Hari Govinda Jaya Radha Ramana Hari Govinda Jaya Jaya Radha Nitai Gauranga Bolo Nitai Gauranga Nitai Gauranga Nitai Gauranga Bolo Nitai Gauranga Nitai Gauranga Bolo Nitai 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 Gauranga Nitai 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 Gauranga Nitai Nitai Jaya Satchinandana Jaya Satchinandana Satchinandana Jaya Satchinandana Jaya Satchinandana Jaya Satchinandana Gaura Hari Jaya Satchinandana Gaura Hari Patita Pavana Gaura Hari Patita Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Ram Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Ram Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Jaya Jagannath, Jaya Jagannath, Jai Jagannath Swami, Jaya Jagannath. Jaya Baladeva, Jai Subhadra, Jai Baladeva, Jaya Subhadra. Jagannath Swami, Nayana Padagami, Nayana Padagami Bhavatu me. Jagannath Swami, Nayana Padagami, Nayana Padagami Bhavatu me. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Jaya Radha Sham Sundar Radha Sham Sundar Radhe. Jaya Radha Sham Sundar Radha Sham Sundar Shri Radhe. Jaya Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai, Gauranitai, Jaya Gauranitai. Jaya Krishna Balaram, Jaya Krishna Balaram, Krishna Balaram, Jaya Krishna Balaram, Jaya Krishna Balaram. Jaya Panchatattva, Jaya Panchatattva, Panchatattva, Jaya Panchatattva. Jaya Giri Govardhan, Giri Govardhan, Giri Govardhan, Jaya Giri Govardhan. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur. Gaura Premanande, Jai Nitai, Gaura Premanande, Hari Hari.
Jayam Vishnu Pad Paramahansa Parikacharya Asatosh Srimad. The Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Parikacharya Asatosh Srimad. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj Ki. Ananta Koti Vaishnavin Ki. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki. Shri Radha Krishna Gopi Gopinath Shram Kun Radha Kun Giri Govardhan Ki. Prem Shri Ho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaur Bhakta Vindiki, Tulsi Devi Bhakti Devi Ki, Samaveda Bhakta Vindiki, Ganga Mai Ki, Yamuna Mai Ki, Vrindavan Dhami Ki, Mayapur Dhami Ki, Jagannath Puri Ki, Transcendental Book Distribution Ki, Hari Nam Sankirtan Ki. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. And all glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga.
Namaste Narase Maya. Namaste Narase Maya. Pralada Laderaine. Pralada Laderaine. Hiranyakashipurvakshaha. Hiranyakashipurvakshaha. Shelatanakam nakalaye. Shelatanakam nakalaye. Etor nasungaho parator nasungaho. Etor nasungaho parator nasungaho. Yato yato yamita tor nasungaho. Yato yato yamita tor nasungaho. Mahe nasungaho redaye nasungaho. Mahe nasungaho redaye nasungaho. Narasimhamadam saranam prapadaya. Narasimhamadam saranam prapadaya. Tava kara kamala varenaka madhuita shanga. Nalita Hiranyakashipu Dayanavenga Kesava Lalita Hiranyakashipu Tanvenga Kesavadrita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadish Hare Jaya Jagadish Hare Jaya Jagadish Hare Jaya Narasimhadev, 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 Jaya Narasimhadev. Jaya Prahlad Maharaj, Jaya Prahlad Maharaj, Jaya Prahlad Maharaj, Jaya Prahlad Maharaj. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Narasimha Bhagwan ki, Prahlad Maharaj ki, Nitai Gaur Premanande.
Yes. Thank you very much. Yes. No, yes, it is. Thank you. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunda Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunda Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari
जय गोपी जना वल्लभा गिरिवारधारी यशोदानंदन ब्रज जनरंजन यशोदानंदन ब्रज जनरंजन यमुना तीरा वनचारी यमुना तीरा वनचारी जय राधा माधव कुंज बिहारी हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे जय प्रभुपदा 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 श्रील प्रभुपदा निताय गौरा हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल निताय गौरा हरि बोल निताय गौरा हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल निताय गौरा हरि बोल। जय श्री श्री राधा श्याम सुंदर भगवान जी की जय। श्री श्री जगन्नाथ बलदेव सुभद्रा मैया की जय। श्री श्री गौर निताय पंच तत्व की जय। श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। ओम अज्ञानातिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरौ श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरुन् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं सागरजातं सगुणरघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्ण चैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगणललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कान्त राधा कान्त नमोस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमदे भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामने Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarane Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Thank you very much for coming to the Sunday feast. I heard this school break, fall school break, and still you are here for Sunday evening. So thank you very much. Also bringing your children to the Sunday school today. So I will humbly speak a few words about Bhagavad Gita. As you know, November, December months, they are especially enlightening us for Bhagavad Gita study. And as Gita Jayanti is approaching, this is the opportunity for us to glorify Bhagavad Gita and Srila Prabhupada more and more. So today I thought I'll take that opportunity and speak a few words. And most of us probably, you have been in this journey with me and with all of us together, but it's still just a little revision and just to see if we can gain some new insights. So my topic today is Bhagavad Gita as it is in the modern world. It's not just relevant, but indeed it's significant and it's indispensable. And so I go this way. Yeah. So then my next slide is, so the people usually ask this question, and that's why we have to reiterate that, yes, Bhagavad Gita is significant in the modern world. So this question, is the Gita relevant in the modern world? So I'll begin with this idea that this question itself is very irrelevant and it's a redundant question according to Srila Prabhupada. So I would like to bring your attention to the introduction part of the Bhagavad Gita. First of all, what do you mean by modern world? What is the definition of modern? So mostly it is something called recent and which is not ancient. So the first question that comes up is that, what do you mean by modern? What is the time period? What is the chronology? Because we could say modern is 50 years. Last 50 years is modern. We could say 100 years, 500 years, or maybe since 5,000 years, since the beginning of the Kali Yuga is modern. So it's really a very, very ambiguous term. And so that's why it's important to first understand when somebody says, oh, is the Gita relevant in the modern world? So what do you mean by modern? That's the first question. And then as we kind of look at the definition of the word modern, we feel that it's so flexible. It can be defined according to our convenience, whatever context we are talking about. So it's not really about 150 years that we are talking about. It could be any period of time since last 5,000 years, since Krishna spoke the Gita. So first of all, the definition itself is not very appropriate to say that the Gita is not relevant to the modern world. And then secondly, I will turn my attention to the introduction part of Srila Prabhupada's commentary in the Bhagavad Gita as it is, where Srila Prabhupada again and again writes the introduction in such a way that it's very clear that this work of Sri Krishna is for the humanity in general. It's nothing to do with the time period, or it is not limited to the time period. And there are several sections in the introduction itself that we can refer to and say that, yes, Srila Prabhupada never meant to write the Gita or commentary for a particular time period. His purports and his introduction do not indicate at all that that will be irrelevant after some time. Neither the subject matters that Bhagavan Krishna has spoken have any indication of that type. So I will read one or two portions from the introduction. And the first one is very famous one. Like this is really a sentence that is very, very well remembered from his introduction. And Srila Prabhupada says that being an associate of Lord Krishna, Arjuna was above all ignorance. But Arjuna was put into ignorance on the battlefield of Kurukshetra just to question Krishna about the problems of life, so that the Lord could explain them for the benefit of future generations of human beings and chalk out the plan of life. Then man could act accordingly and perfect the mission of human life. So you can see that Srila Prabhupada indicates that this is for the benefit of coming generations. So there is no question of limiting it to any particular time period. Now, similarly, there's another paragraph Srila Prabhupada mentions that the purpose of Bhagavad Gita is to deliver mankind from nations of material existence. And every man is in difficulty in so many ways, as Arjuna was also in a difficulty in having to fight the battle of Kurukshetra. So Arjuna surrendered unto Krishna, and consequently this Bhagavad Gita was spoken. Not only Arjuna, but every one of us is full of anxieties because of this material existence. And Lord Krishna descends specifically to reestablish the real purpose of life when man forgets that purpose. So to this end, he spoke the Bhagavad Gita, making his friend Arjuna his student. So this part again from the introduction, Srila Prabhupada is very much emphasizing that this is for you, O readers. This is for people like you and me. And Arjuna has been made as an example by Krishna to speak the Gita for the mankind to come. And in this way, we have, when we as devotees, when we have Krishna consciousness practice in our lives, we really don't really much struggle with that question, whether it is relevant or not, right? Because we are already convinced that Bhagavad Gita is for us. It's for me, it's personally for me, it's personally for my family, and collectively for our society here. And we develop that conviction more and more as we study and carefully and faithfully read the Bhagavad Gita, right? So that's how it is. And interestingly, after that, I found one particular lecture that Srila Prabhupada was giving in 1973 in Calcutta. And there was this question that came up about the modernness and the relevance of the Gita. So see what Srila Prabhupada spoke in that class. He said that somebody says the modernness. What is this modernness? Does it mean the modern man does not die? Does it mean the modern man does not eat? Does the modern sun arise from the western side? What is modern? There is nothing modern. Everything is perpetual, eternal, is going on. If there may be some little changes for the time being, that is another thing. But the regular ways of the laws of nature, they are perpetual. So that's what Srila Prabhupada says. He kindly condemns this idea of modernness. So again, it's interesting, in the 21st century, we think that we are the center and everything is relating to us. But, even if we want to consider like the historical examples, like consider the people who were born around World War I, World War II, and what they were born and they died just seeing the wars, 2 wars. So it's not that the problems are only we are having. It's not like that. The problems are there for generations, and then, as Prabhupada says, it's a perpetual, eternal thing, and is the law of nature. It's not going to be changing. So again, this is just a little consideration as to how that question is really not relevant at all, and it's actually redundant. But still, the fun part is that there are so many questions in today's world, so many questions that make us confused, that make us doubtful sometimes. And that's pretty natural. There's a long list of problems, and we all are familiar with all of those words. Like sometimes, especially the news, when we read the news, you just feel so depressed. You feel like, what's going on in this world? You don't understand. And then doubts can come up. It's not that impossible, or it's not 100% to be negated or suppressed. That, okay, if we feel doubtful about how this world is going, and we are not sure as to how we are going to survive materially, spiritually, questioning that in our hearts is okay. It's nothing to be suppressed. That as devotees, we don't have to pretend that everything is going to be okay, and we are going to be okay. So questioning is no problem. We should question ourselves, because by questioning, we will also look at the answers again. And that's what today I thought we will do. As doubts do arise, so it's good to discuss, especially among devotees, because it's a safe place, and it's similar mindedness, and with those two facilities we can discuss, and we can find Bhagavad Gita as it is, not only relevant, but it's a very significant and very indispensable part of us. So in in today's world, there's a word significant other. That's the funny word. I mean, a different connotation. But here, Bhagavad Gita is our significant other, because we are a part of the Gita, and Gita is a part of our life. So in that way, it can become our significant and indispensable part. So that's how I would like to speak a little bit now today on that topic, that how it's significant and most important part of our life is the Gita. And why is it so? Especially looking at the list of the problems that we saw, and the kind of confusion and the depression and the doubts about the human life that we have today's world. So one verse that I love, especially in this connection, today's connection, is that at the end of the Gita, Krishna speaks that Matchitta sarva durgani mat prasadat parishyasi atha chetva mahankaran nashosyasi vinangshasi. If you become conscious of me, you will pass over all obstacles of conditioned life by my grace. If, however, you do not work in such consciousness, but act through false ego, not hearing me, you will be lost. So just even considering this one verse, it is so wonderful that Krishna is pointing out to us that here I am here, my words are here, my Gita is here, it's for you. If you take it, good for you. If you don't take it, then good luck. So I thought this is a great verse to begin with, I mean, to especially bring in today's discussion. So how Bhagavad Gita is significant? I will speak about it at 3 levels. So Bhagavad Gita's significance on a personal level, individual level, and a family level. Then Bhagavad Gita on a social level, and then the Bhagavad Gita on the environmental level, the significance. So we'll take a little look at these. And under personal, there are 4 parts. One is the preparatory role of the Gita in our lives, then educational role in our lives, then our experiential, or actually when I prepared the slide, I made experimental, but it also can be experiential. So experiment and experience, they will go together, right? So that's the 3rd. And the 4th is relational. So let's see how I can help you with, like, how do I share my few thoughts on each of these points. So what I thought I would do is that under each, as I speak, I would like to refer to Bhagavad Gita verses, so that
we are talking more specific, and maybe if you need, you can go home and also look at those verses and see your own trajectory, your own journey in Krishna consciousness with Bhagavad Gita. So my only concern is that how efficiently I turn the pages, because if I refer to this, because we are going to look at some bunch of verses, and my only concern is that I need to turn the pages really efficiently so that you feel connected. Otherwise, it will not be so good. But anyway, so on a personal level, for our personal enlightenment, how the Gita plays the role. And each one of you have your own story, how you connect with the Gita and how you started connecting with the Gita and how you benefited and where you are today and all those details. So preparation. So preparatory, what I mean by that is that when we are, I mean, some of us may be really really fortunate to be born in a Vaishnava family where right from the beginning you had an encounter with the Gita, and then as you grew up, you really already had well understanding of the Gita. So some of us maybe, but I guess most of us may not be in that way. And most of us joined the Hare Krishna movement and came across the Gita as a significant book, not as maybe in your homes when you were growing up, there was a Gita, definitely, but not in that way, but really understanding and relating to the Gita. Probably for all of us, this happened sometime later in our lives. And that exactly is the preparatory stage for each one of us, where we came to the Gita with some background in our lives. There was something there that was troubling or questioning, and we turned to the Gita, and then we got an introduction to the Gita. So that is the beginning stage for our connection with the Gita. And it's interesting that this preparatory stage actually gives us a glimpse of how this Gita is going to be a part of my life and how it is going to be my inner guide. And I'm sure it will resonate with your experiences as well, but I will also speak of some of my experiences also. So as we begin, many times when this book is introduced to us, we don't immediately thoroughly read it from page to page, and we don't really systematically study it for many, many days or maybe months. We probably look at some of the sections, and some of us come to some introductory courses on the Gita where they give a glimpse of, they give a whole overview, right? So we run through many chapters, many verses, but they kind of connect the dots and they give us a philosophy that here, this is the science of self-realization to Gita, take it. So most of us probably have taken those kind of courses. So same thing happened with me. When I was reading it for the first time with some introductory course, some things that immediately came to my mind, and I call them my preparatory stage, because that was the time when the introduction to the Gita opened my eyes. And I started looking at my own life. Like, so far I have lived my life, and I started making the own analysis of my life. Like, where was I and where I need to be. So in that way, self-analysis and the scrutiny of our own mind could be the very first step. And Krishna says, it's Indriyani Pramithani, so in the chapter 2, verse 60, it says, Indriyani Pramathini Haranti Prabhasammanha. So I identified myself with this verse because it says the senses are strong and impulsive. And yes, when we read the Gita for the first time, it makes sense to understand that my senses, my mind is different from me, and how I act under the influence of senses and mind. That's the first lesson we get when we get introduced. And then, I personally also, I'm sure you also related to Arjuna's situation. in the first and the second chapter, when Arjuna said, my Veputha Sharira, right? What it says, yeah, this is gonna be my commentator there. So it says that my body is trembling because of these challenges that I have, and my hair is standing on the end. I am unable to stand any longer. My mind is reeling. I see misfortune. So I connected with Arjuna's confusion in the beginning. Yes, that this is what happens in the real life when we have problems, and we are confused about the duty, and we see all the adverse circumstances coming to us. So then the more information we get, we connect with the modes of nature, that yes, it makes such a sense, especially in the 14th chapter, it says that, okay, this is the mode of goodness, where you are happy about the knowledge, you're happy about your well-being, and then your mode of passion is going to make you angry, make to get you ambitious, and if you don't meet your ambitions, you get upset, you get angry, and you have many longings, many desires, and there is also more of ignorance, where you feel there is a lot of laziness, a little bit of sadness, and all those negative and black feelings. And I see myself, oh yes, I'm a combination. Like I have all of these things together in my body, in my mind. So this is the way we also see when we start learning from the Gita, the nature of happiness. When I personally was growing up, and I felt that, okay, I gained quite a reasonable amount of material comforts, and I had good education, my profession started really well, good marriage, good household life started, and we realized that the happiness is fleeting. And then, but we don't realize when the life goes on. But when I took up the Gita and said, oh yes, this makes sense, that the happiness is really fleeting, it's not permanent. And in the Gita, Krishna in the 2nd chapter very nicely gives that whole chain, that we have the desires, and then the desires, lust, anger, greed. And when that is not met, we get angry, and anger into delusion. And then all these negative indications and negative tendencies, they grow up. So yeah, I connected with that. We all are very familiar with the stressful life. And Gita tells us that we have limitations, and then we can actually see those limitations when we read the Gita. So in today's world, we have many material comforts, that they probably didn't exist 100 years ago. We are very comfortable in many sense, like we have air conditioners, cars that run to go from one place to another. We have airplanes, even on a weekly basis, people fly. So all of that happiness in general is there. We have, health facilities on a reasonable level. Everything is there. But the problem is that we are very comfortably in distress. Very comfortably in distress. We may be sitting in an air-conditioned office, and we are sweating because of the stress, because of the office situations, whatever they are. And so we are very comfortably in distress or uncomfortable. And that we realize that I have to chase the happiness, and when I get it, it just runs out of my hands. Sometimes we get so much in distress that we want to run away from all of the work and all of the daily routines. And then people take to entertainment, but entertainment does not help because it's temporary. And it's said that the more entertainment you get, the more bored you get. And then you want more entertainment, more exciting entertainment. And it's like a never-ending process. So again, we realize these things when we read the Gita, when we read the purports, they are actually preparing us. This is the preparatory stage. And these are some of the verses, that can connect us. And really, we connect with so many happenings that are happening in the news. When you read these new things in the news, and you get back to the Gita, and you feel, yes, this is what is mentioned in the Gita. Like, especially, the purpose of life. So today, the education system is that, the purpose is that you get education, you get wealth, you get fame, but sometimes they do not provide fulfillment. There is no fulfillment. And even if you have fulfillment of some of the goals, the more goals are standing next in the line. And some of the goals we are never able to achieve, right? And so these are the many examples. There are so many examples of daily frustrations that we have. And some extreme cases of frustration also we hear in the news, like, people get depressed not because they are unsuccessful. In fact, there are so many examples of the most successful people who are depressed, who are lonely, and they commit suicide for that reason. I remembered there's one case of a woman. She was a very, very successful businesswoman in some designer line or something, Kate Spade. And for her loneliness, she had to commit suicide. She was the billionaire maybe, but she committed suicide. And many times people are lonely and they turn to violence, killing other people. So many things. So this we see again, as I showed you the slide before, the question marks. So many question marks about our lives, about other people's lives, about the society. Is just confusing. But the only good part is that when we connect all of those confusions and doubts to the Gita, to the teachings of the Gita, to the commentaries of Srila Prabhupada, then that becomes like a stage for us, the background stage for us to prepare to go to the next step. Because Bhagavad Gita has layers, and it comes to us in those layers. It's not that the first day we are completely enlightened. There are many, many years that might pass, and the Gita will introduce herself. I call her herself. I have a personality. This is a personality, and she comes to us in stages. So Bhagavan Krishna knows that we are in the preparation stage. The only good thing is that we are connecting these worldly things, worldly problems, worldly confusions to the teachings now. And that's how we become ready for the next step. And the next step that I call is educational. So we actually begin kind of an education with the Gita, right? And even though some of the verses we read, they might sound theoretical to us in the beginning. So but at the same time, we start gentle practice, a small practice. For example, in the 9th chapter, it says, Manmana bhava madbhakto madhyaji mam namaskro. Mame vaishyasi satyante pratijani priyosime. So become my devotee, offer obeisances to me, do my worship, do some small service to me. And we begin doing that. And that is the beginning of our educational stage. Slowly, gradually, the Gita trains us. And that's the first step in the training. And I have seen, and also you also must have seen, that we are able to give up undesirable items and take up desirable items. For example, I really connect with those 2 verses in the 9th chapter again, where Krishna says, Yat karoshi yad ashnasi, yad juhosi dadasi, yat tapasyasi kauntaya tat kurushva madarpanam. Whatever you do, whatever charity you do, offerings you do, sacrifice you do, services you do them for me, Krishna says. And then also about the food, you offer patram pushpam phalam toyam, you offer the vegetarian, purely prepared food to me with love and devotion, and then I'll give you the prasad. So those 2 things, again, are very preliminary in our education. We start learning, we start getting educated by a gradual practice. Similarly, there are so many other verses that really begin making sense to us. For example, in generally our worldview of spirituality just expands. That's what experiences. Like we know what is detachment. We understand, at least theoretically, again, we are in the educational stage. We understand what detachment is and how it should be practiced. Now, there is one other, section in the Gita, in the 13th chapter, the definition of knowledge. And as we really begin our education with the Gita, this is the verse that really, really makes sense to us. This whole definition of the word knowledge. What do you mean by knowledge? Krishna says that knowledge is these qualities. And as you develop these qualities will bring you knowledge. Those qualities are, some of them are like humility, pridelessness, nonviolence, tolerance, simplicity, spiritual master, taking shelter of the spiritual master, cleanliness, steadiness, renunciation of the objects of senses, sense gratification, and then understanding the evils of this cycle of birth and death and this routine life that goes on and just ends without any purpose. So having that vision, or developing that vision, and then unalloyed devotion to me, and also the desire to get spiritually educated. These are actually the symptoms of knowledge. And as we begin our journey more and more with the Gita, we come to know, oh, that is what it is. And then this definition of the word Sita Pragya in the 2nd chapter, it really opens our eyes that where we are and where we need to be. Sita Pragya is, Sukha Dukkha Sama. There's no duality. At least theoretically, we understand, when the situations happen and we are in distress, at least we understand in our heart that I need to be stable in either happiness or distress, even if it doesn't happen. And then the other important, I can tell you about myself, like when I started this with the Gita a little bit more journey, one concept that got really cleared in my mind was about the prescribed duty. Because we have so many great ideas about what my duty is, right? Like before coming to spirituality, like most of the people think that I need to earn money, I need to make enough wealth, and so I can maintain my family and give my children the best education. That's my duty. Karma, they say something, karma is your yoga, something like that. But actually that's not so. And the Gita has a wonderful section on the prescribed duty. And as we do our more and more progress, there's a whole big clarity about the word prescribed duty. And Prabhupada mentions this in the purport to the 3rd chapter, 35th verse. And he says there are 2 types of duties, the prescribed duties. He says that materially prescribed duties are duties enjoined according to one's psychophysical condition under the modes of material nature, which means basically our material material prescribed duties are about our condition, who we are as our body, mind, senses. Like I may be a woman, I may be a man, I may be in a particular situation and in a family situation, and that's my material prescribed duty. But Srila Prabhupada says further that spiritual duties are ordered by the spiritual master for the transcendental service to Krishna. So we realize that, oh, this is actually so. So your job is not your prescribed duty. Your job is there today, it's not there today, or you may go into business or whatever. You may be earning money, you may become poor, but your prescribed duty continues. And your prescribed duty will liberate you. The job doesn't liberate you, right? So there are so many wonderful comparisons to do when it comes to your job and especially your prescribed duty, when you do properly, according to Srila Prabhupada's explanation, that you do your material duties properly, you do your spiritual duty properly, you are blessed. Because there's a whole system of blessing. The whole system of blessing is explained that in the 3rd chapter, that everything has been arranged by the Lord. Initially, as a sacrifice to Lord Vishnu through different Devi Devatas, and there's a whole system of getting the blessings. So you begin the understanding of prescribed duty, and then you develop a desire to go according to that. So no matter then what happens to your profession, to your job, to your family problems or whatever it is, you know that you have to be fixed in your prescribed duty. And that was a great education to me, and personally, I would say. The other, you personally can also share so many different experiences that you probably had under this particular idea of getting educated by the Gita, and how you improved in your understanding of the material, about the nature of the material life and spirituality, right? But at least for this class, and as far as I could gather some of the points, this is what can fall under the educational aspect of the significance of the Gita. And then the next part, it goes to experiment and experience. And I call it practicum. Like, you have the knowledge in the university or school, and then you do some experiments in the lab or whatever, and then you come to know, oh, whatever I learned is actually happening in the laboratory, right? So similarly, this is our time, because now we have grown up a little bit more with the Gita. We have been educated by the Gita, and now we want to experiment that, okay, now I have this problem, and I learned in the Gita that this is the recommendation. So let me try it. And then we experiment, and then we experience. We experience that it works. Whatever Krishna is saying in the Gita is actually can come true in my life. And that confidence we get, that yes. And then we get into that little habit of opening the Gita again and again and seeing where I can find a solution to my problems, right? So for that, I like this verse, which is in the 14th chapter. The very first beginning of this 14th chapter. It says that idam jnanam upashritya mama sadharmya agataha sargepi nopajayante pralaye na vyathayanti cha, which means becoming fixed in this knowledge. Srila Prabhupada translate this as become fixed in the knowledge, or in other words, jnanam upashritya, you take shelter of this knowledge. So it's not just the education now, it's not just the knowledge, but you're taking shelter of that knowledge to solve the problems of your life, or to face the problems of your life, not necessarily even solve, just to face. So this is taking shelter. And as we study more and more the Gita, we get an understanding about the purpose of our life. What is the purpose of my life? And we understand that that purpose is such that it will be a source of my peace. And as we do experiment and as we experience, gradually, we also start associating with devotees. And when we see other devotees also progressing or getting benefited by the practice of the Gita's teachings, we get enlivened. Oh, you know what? It's not just me. I'm not the only one, but there are so many people like me, and they are also getting benefited. So we get very encouraged. It's a great encouragement. And for that, I like this verse. It says in the 4th chapter, Vitaravaga bhaya krodha manmaya mamupashitaha bahavo jnana tapasa puta madbhavagata. So being freed from attachment, fear, anger, being fully absorbed in me and taking refuge in me, many persons in the past have been purified by knowledge of me, and thus they have all attained transcendental love for me. So yes, we can come across people like this. I mean, Krishna is speaking about the great sages, but in general, people around us who are devotees for many number of years, we can take great inspiration from them, because they have actually practiced this detachment on fear and anger, and they have been purified, because we see the progress when we talk to them, we see their actions. So this is something we learn by associating with others in this journey. And then we actually start solving our problems with the help of, again, the experiment stage. And as far as I'm concerned, I know in the beginning, my son was diagnosed with autism, and I was in little turmoil, like I didn't know what to do. How do I raise this child and everything? And then that time, I honestly tell you that this book came to my rescue, because this is what I had learned about at that time, that, okay, this is the thing, book can solve the problems. And I actually started taking shelter of this book when I was, facing the challenges. So this actually can happen with all of us. We actually, whatever situation we are in, we can actually practice some of these principles and face the problems, and then we see that we are able to tolerate those problems. We are able to pass through those problems. The problem doesn't become us. The problem doesn't grasp us completely. We can face it, we can keep it aside, and we can move on. So that's what happens actually. And one important thing that happened with me, and also I'm sure it happens with you, is that, as I said before, the purpose, we get clarity about the purpose as to why I'm going through this and why I have to do what I have to do. How do I face this? Because, purposefulness is meaningfulness is very important. Purposefulness is very important. One example they usually give is that, you go to a surgeon, and the surgeon has to cut something in your body part and fix something. And the pain related to that cutting and everything, you accept very, very openly, because you know the meaning and the purpose behind that is to get better with the surgery. But otherwise, if you do not know that, if somebody else is trying to do the same act, you will be in great pain, you'll be in great panic and things like that. So when we have meaning, we willingly accept everything. And that's what happens with the Gita for sure, because we understand from Krishna's words and Prabhupada's commentaries that how to find that meaningness in my life. And when it becomes everything connected to Krishna, it becomes very easy to accept. Like, say, for example, there are so many parents of autistic kids, and sometimes they're not able to tolerate that. And they separate, husband, wife, they separate because they cannot handle this child, which is given to them by God. But with the Gita, if there are some parents who can understand the meaning behind this whole scenario, and then you willingly accept that problem. You will willingly accept, you become so meaningful. In fact, there is a whole spiritual, I would say, spiritual doors open to you because of that calamity or because of the adversity. And you also must have noticed that some of the adversities that we have faced while in this journey, they are actually beneficial. They're actually blessings to us in disguise. So this is another practical aspect that we can grow with. And the other aspect, which is the ultimate one in this journey, is that we reconceptualize our identity and our role. So identity as the soul. I'm not this life is just few years. It's temporary. It's not all in all, So it's very easy to accept the happiness and distress both in a very sober way, because we know that our real identity is as a soul, and my real role to play is the servant of Krishna. And in that way, mind becomes peaceful. Most important thing is that when we reconceptualize in this way, and in that way we practice, our mind becomes peaceful. There is no other way to peaceful mind. Krishna promises you won't find any other way. If you want peaceful mind, this is what it is. And as we become peaceful, we get the empowerment or the energy to even further spiritualize our life. And I will speak about Srila Prabhupada later at the end, because he is this particular living example of how he was able to use his energy and transform the world, right? So that stage comes, when it's not about, it doesn't remain just, okay, I have my life, I have these problems, I will solve these problems with the help of the Gita. We go beyond that. How do we go beyond that? Because we completely identify who we are as spirit soul. We identify as our service to Krishna and Guru. And that service somehow can be understood as the main aspect of our life. And my material life just goes on the sides. It will go on because it has to happen. Whether I'm spiritual, whether I'm materially oriented, whatever it is, my life is going to go on. Things are going to grow. People are going to grow in my lives. Events are going to happen. Life is just going to pass. But our whole, I could say, focus shifts to a very different, meaningful, purposeful service to God, Krishna and Guru. And that is really, I would say, a very good stage, a very enlightened stage. And that's what Srila Prabhupada example brings us here. There's a very nice song by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur in Sharanagati. He says that when I work very difficult task for Krishna, that difficult task becomes my very happiness. that difficult task becomes very much the very happiness for myself. And all the distresses born in the course of Krishna's service become the source of my pleasure. All the distresses in the service, they become the source of my pleasure. And happiness and distress born from Krishna's service are my supreme wealth, and they destroy the unhappiness of nations. So that is like a really good stage where your life is completely dedicated to Krishna and Guru. And of course, you're taking care of your material aspect side by side. Doesn't mean that we stop looking after our material welfare. We are going on, but our focus is like this, where we actually, I'll go to the next step in that the next step is relational. The relational significance of the Gita, where we at this stage actually have great joy and love in connection with Krishna. It's not just problem solving anymore. It's much more than that, because Krishna becomes the whole purpose of our life. He becomes the center of our lives. And for that reason, there's a beautiful verse in the 9th chapter, we all know. At the very beginning, it says, Raja Vidya Raja Guyam. Shri Radha Shyam Sundar Ji ki jai. Jagannath Baldev Subhadra ki jai. Gaur Nitai Panchatattva ki jai. So the Gita says that Raja Vidya Raja Guyam Pavitram Idam Uttamam Pratyaksham Avagamam Dharmyam Susukham Kartum Avyam. So that becomes joyful, everlasting, and perfection of religion. So you actually start enjoying. It's Pratyaksha Avagamam, you perceive it, you practice, you experience it. It is Dharmyam, it is Susukham. It's very joyfully performed. And I can give you the example of Sanjaya, especially at the end of the Gita. What happens to Sanjaya? That should happen to us. By listening to the Gita, he says that he has amazing experiences. He says, Rajan Samsmritya, right? That he says, I repeatedly recall this wondrous and holy dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna. I take pleasure being thrilled at every moment. So it's a repeated joy that he experiences. And that is our stage that can happen. Because as we relate to the Gita, as I said before, Gita is a person to me. And I call her my transcendental mother. And you may call by some other relationship, but that can actually happen, that we have a very personal relationship. And that's why that's the last relational stage in our personal journey with the Gita. And that's where the verse that I showed you in the beginning can also be very meaningful, where it says, Mat chitta sarva durgani, mat prasadat tarishasi. You take shelter of me, I will take care of you. And then it says that chetasa sarva karmani mai sanyasya matpara. Like you just, in all activities, depend on me and work always under my direction and protection. And in that devotional service, just be fully conscious of me. That's it. That's the stage we get. No matter what we do, we are conscious of Krishna's protection and shelter and guidance for us. And that also, I will say one more verse, which is beautifully relational in its nature, is it says, Yomam pashyati sarvatra, sarvam chamai pashyati, tasyaham na pranashyami, sachanema pranashyati. I am never lost to that person, or that person does not lose me, because that person now is able to see me everywhere and sees everything in me. So that stage can come. And that's our relationship with the Gita, with the Krishna. And it becomes very beautiful. So that I just wanted to present the personal aspect. And then there are, very briefly, I can touch upon the social and the environmental. So social means my circle of influence, like who are the people within my circle of influence that I can help. So when Gita becomes a part of me and my personal relationship, we reach out to the other people. And that's where, the very famous verse in the 10th chapter, it says, Machittam madgata prana bodhayanta parasparam. So we start exchanging our delight exchanging the delight that we have with our relationship with the Gita with other people and see what their experiences are. And in that process, we also find one of our favorite services for Krishna, where my heart is in that service becomes my life and soul, because I enjoy the service 100%. I give myself in that service, and I get a joy. Because I know Prabhupada is happy, Krishna is happy with me, Radharani is happy with me. So that is the social aspect where we can start influencing other people with the help of our Gita's knowledge. And our children, at home, with our family members, with our society, we start creating mode of goodness around ourselves, and we start creating spiritual atmosphere around us. And also we have opportunities around us to help other people and get connected. So our exemplary devotional service, whether we are in the temple community or outside, wherever we go, we have a standard of behavior. We have a standard of life. And that exemplary behavior is our service to the society with the help of the Gita. And then the environmental aspect, or environmental means things around us, but not necessarily under my influence. I'm not directly influencing people, but they're still a part of my environment. And that could be anything, like in general, the living entities. So when we take up the practice of the Gita, when we implement Gita in our lives, we are doing welfare to other living entities around us, to the nature, to Mother Earth. And in general, there are so many projects within ISKCON, which we don't have a direct relationship with those projects. They may be happening somewhere else, but we have a way we can contribute to those things. And in general, spreading Lord Chaitanya Sankirtana movement, that's environmental, that something we can contribute to. And that can help so many people. We don't even know about those people. Through these projects, we can help those people, help those projects, and in that way preserve and propagate Sankirtana movement of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So that is all I wanted to say about this journey and the significance and the indispensable nature of the Gita in our lives. And one last thing, that's why I wanted to bring to your attention Srila Prabhupada. When I was speaking about this relational aspect, he totally, by his own example, showed to us, he displayed to us how this relationship can be built and how this personal life can be completely dedicated to Krishna. Because Srila Prabhupada came across so many problems, not when he was here, many years before that, when he was a householder, when he just had his guru's orders. He had not even executed those orders, but he was preparing for those orders to be executed. At that time, he used to go. How many of you have not read Prabhupada Leelamrita? Anybody who has not read? You haven't read? So I would say, please buy and read it, because Srila Prabhupada Leelamrita is the biography of Srila Prabhupada. It's the most thrilling story that I've ever come across. It is way beyond any Hollywood, Bollywood thrilling stories. You will not find. And every page, literally, I'm not joking, every page you will cry. You will cry, and you should cry, because that story will tell us what Srila Prabhupada what Srila Prabhupada did to connect with Krishna and to bring Krishna to the rest of the world. In the beginning, he used to print books. He used to go door to door, distributing back to Godhead. He almost established a good Krishna consciousness program in Jhansi, and he was completely thrown out of that Jhansi for the whimsical behaviors of the people. He had to close down his complete efforts over there and move. And then, we all know how the Bhagavad Gita manuscript that he had written earlier was stolen by his own family members. And then we all know the story of his coming to New York and going through an ordeal to establish Krishna consciousness and bring Krishna to us. So Prabhupada brought Bhagavad Gita to us. He helped us to relate with her and by his own example. So he is one of the, he's our inspiration in this whole journey of our relation, or building or developing our relationship with the Gita. So I wanted to stop here by praying, by paying our gratitude to Srila Prabhupada for what he has done to give us this transcendental book. Without him, probably we don't know when we would have come across the Gita. Probably my chance that in this life I would have missed it. I feel that way. So I'm very grateful to Srila Prabhupada every day for what he has done to us. So thank you very much. I hope this helps us in revising. We all know this. This is not new to us, but it's just a little recap again, so that we can get again, get charged in our devotional practice. So thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Srila Prabhupada. Any comments or anything that we can discuss further? Yes, please. You take.
Thank you, Mathaji. A very wonderful class. And I'm sure it's coming out of from a person who has experienced a lot of pain and suffering and has come out of, right? So it carries a lot more weight. So was there any process you followed, like when you were going through the situations, right? Was there a method you followed to read the Gita, or was it just like you randomly flip a page and the verse speaks to you?
Usually we flip through the pages. Initially, we do flip through the pages. That's okay. But later on, you have to sit down and systematically study it by yourself. You do not have to listen to lectures in order to grasp. You of course, I mean, you can take the benefit of the glasses, but my point is that personally for myself, when I studied myself, not just depend on the classes. Classes is one tool. Use that tool as needed, but you do your own study. And especially now, 10 years ago, not much, but today there's so many teaching guides available, like how to study Gita, and they have courses, and it's a wonderful experience when you do systematic study. If you don't do it, you will always be just flipping through the pages. So please, if you have time and if you're determined, please do the systematic study. I did that one. Anyone else? Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna, Mathaji. Thank you for that wonderful realizations and a wonderful lecture. Mathaji, is it possible for you to share the verse numbers with all the subheaders? Because it was very insightful when I was listening. I was really touched the way you connected them to the side headers. So I'd like to ponder over it once more. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna. Yeah.
So I'm glad that you liked the references of the verses, and I really appreciate that you can go and actually look at them. So this is what can happen very easily as we study, we have to keep studying the Gita again and again and again for many, many, many times. And then these verses will really make sense to us. And then we can connect all these dots and really make wonderful connection for other people as well. So yeah, so I'll share that. Thank you. All done. Hey, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
The quick announcements before you leave. Today's Sunday Feast program is sponsored by Mohan Chandra Prabhu and Payal Mathaji for their daughter's birthday. Radhika, are they here? Please come forward. Then next Saturday is Ekadasi, Utpanna Ekadasi, fasting from grains and beans. And then December 3rd is the next important celebration, important festival, which is Gita Jayanti, December 3rd, Saturday. Very, very important day for all of us, as we just heard about Bhagavad Gita. So program will be, I think, 4 to 8 or 4 to 9. All 700 plus verses will be chanting with Yajna here. You're all invited. Please invite other friends and colleagues. You can sponsor Gita, a chapter 108, and you will get a box of Bhagavad Gita, which you can use to distribute to others, as it's the holidays and festival season. And also we'll have another Yajna, Sankalpa Yajna, it is called, which is next Sunday, probably 4 to 8 or 5 to 8. We'll let you know the exact timing. So please join next Sunday for that Gita Yajna Sankalpa to distribute books for the rest of the year till December 31st. So by beginning next Sunday, taking the Sankalpa with the strength from Srila Prabhupada and previous Acharyas and the Supreme Lord. So we'll have cake cutting now. Someone can sing. Who wants to sing? Hare
Krishna to you. Hare Krishna to you. Hare Krishna, dear Radhika. Hare Krishna to you. May you never take birth again. May you never take birth again. May you never take birth again and go back to Godhead. Oh my God.
One more announcement from Hema Jagannath. Go ahead.
Hare Krishna, everyone. How many of you have heard of Indian Tribal Care Ministry of ISKCON? How many of you have heard about it? You haven't, right? So this is a perfect opportunity to recognize, as Mathaji was mentioning, that we have to do some environmental projects, and ISKCON has a ministry like ISKCON has. If you can kindly sit down for 2 minutes, it won't be long. ISKCON has many ministries. ISKCON has, devotee care. ISKCON has DT ministry, right? ISKCON has ministry called Indian Tribal Care. In many places, there is massive conversion which is happening in the northeast part of India. There's massive conversion. And one of the bona fide ministries of ISKCON is called Indian Tribal Care. You can go Google it out. So His Holiness Bhakti Purushottam Swami Maharaj, 2-3 years back, he came and he introduced the Indian Tribal Care Ministry in front of the temple. And we had so many wonderful devotees from our temple who went and sponsored. So today we are going to recognize them. We have some wonderful gifts from Mayapur Dham, which is sent by His Holiness Bhakti Purushottam Maharaj. I'll just call out few names. If you are here, please come and take the shawls from our spiritual uncle, Bhusara Prabhu. So the devotees who are helping in Indian Tribal Care, Devkinandan Prabhu is here, Dhira Govinda Prabhu, Damodar Bilas Prabhu, Golokapati Govinda Das Prabhu. Please come and take your gift from Maharaj through Bhusara Prabhu. Come. Hari Kishore Prabhu is there. Hari Kishore Prabhu. Sankarshan Sharan Prabhu is there. Then we have Satya Dwarkadhis Prabhu. He is inside. Simeswar Prabhu, he is inside. And we have Sharad Bihari Prabhu. If you can come and take your gift from So we have Damodar Vilas Prabhu, who is also sponsoring. Subal Prabhu is there. Then we have Sunil Sham Prabhu. Sunil Sham Prabhu, please come and take your gift from Indian Tribal Care. There's massive conversion going on all around the world, and in the northeast part of India, Indian Tribal Care Ministry of ISKCON is doing a big. Is there anyone who is sponsoring Indian Tribal Care, but I didn't call out their names? Maybe you have been sponsoring, but somehow you didn't go through, So is there anyone who is sponsoring? Okay, if you're sponsoring, please reach out. If you want to sponsor, please reach out. And you'll do a wonderful service, as Mathaji was mentioning, environmental. It is very important for us to support these initiatives. So thank you very much for your attention. We can have all prasadam. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.